Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Let's talk about trees. I'm sure you've all seen clips of people making these massive, stunningly beautiful tree builds and thought, man, there is no way I could ever do that. And to that I say, well, why not? It's not like Good Times with Scar made like a pact with a forest god or something. Everything that those amazing builders can do is something that can be learned and replicated. Now, I'm not claiming to be as good as these famous builders. My ego is not that big. But what I can do is break down some very important concepts for you guys to make you a better builder. Sit back, relax, and enjoy 7 quick tips for making custom trees in Minecraft. Part 2. Alright, I'm gonna be nice here and give you guys my best piece of tree building advice right off the bat. In my opinion, the single most important thing to understand is that you don't have to build huge trees. I kind of touched on this in my original custom trees video from way back when, but I really want to talk about it again, cause it's important. Obviously, building massive mega trees is very cool, and that's like what everyone's doing nowadays, but that's also a huge commitment. On top of that, it's gonna be incredibly difficult to get the shapes and proportions looking right, especially in survival. Here's a tree I put together in my video, 3 ways to build a Minecraft willow tree. This giant tree is really dope, but also like, it took forever to get the trunk right, and I had to put down thousands of leaves. And this was in creative mode, where I'm flying around, I got infinite leaves, I don't need to worry about resources. I can't imagine what it would have been like to do in survival. There's absolutely nothing wrong with building smaller trees, and plus, if you're building on a more player-centric scale, you know, smaller, you can make a lot more trees. I don't know about you, but I'd say that a whole forest of normal-sized trees is way more immersive than one massive tree that just towers over a bunch of regular old vanilla Minecraft trees. Modeling your tree build off of a real-life tree can be helpful, but real life has its limitations. There are so many different kinds of trees. If you want a number, 60,000 kinds. Yeah, talk about a good source of inspiration. Like I often suggest in my builds, working with a reference image, in this case a real-life tree, is gonna be a huge help. Personally, I'd have a really hard time perfectly imagining a tree in my mind. With reference, you can see exactly how the trunk curves and the leaves billow out to get that extra little bit of realism. But you don't always want that. If you only look at real-life trees for references, you're in some ways limiting yourself. Maybe you're working on an alien biome, or you want to make giant magical trees from a fantasy world. In that case, let your imagination run wild. Don't limit yourself with what actually exists in the real world. After all, it's Minecraft. If you want to make a 200 block tall blue and pink tree with white leaves, don't let me stop you. Don't underestimate the insane amount of leaves you'll need. Let's try something real quick. A little science experiment, I guess. Here's a regular old boring vanilla oak tree. And usually when you see these in game, you just like chop down the 4 or 5 logs and let the leaves go away on their own. But let's say you wanted to build one of these from scratch. How many leaves would you need? Well, believe it or not, this regular old tree has 49 leaves. I also ran the same experiment on one of those big oak trees, you know, the tall ones with the branches and stuff, and it had a whopping 358 leaves. I bet that's more than you were expecting. And these are just for normal sized trees. I'd bet that almost every custom tree out there is bigger than these. Not gonna lie, I'm kinda scared to check, but I wanna see how many leaves are in this beast. Thankfully, we don't need to count. We have technology. Let me just fiddle around with Light-O-Matica real quick. Okay, yeah, that's a lot. So if you're making custom trees in survival, keep this in mind. Invest in a really good hoe. Stock up on shulker boxes and bone meal. It's gonna really suck if you need to keep making trips to get more leaves. No one likes being interrupted like that when they build. You don't just need to use wood and leaf blocks. Now, of course, in regular vanilla Minecraft terrain generation, you don't see like slabs or stairs or whatever generating as part of the natural trees, but when it comes to your own trees, don't be afraid to get a little bit wacky. Some of the best custom trees use plenty of other blocks like stairs, slabs, fences, and even gates. They can work really well as smaller branches or make your trunk feel less blocky. If you want to make more creative trees, you can totally work with blocks that aren't even derived from any wood. For example, acacia wood, tuff, and andesite, birch and calcite and diorite, strip jungle wood and brown mushrooms. All of these block combos have similar colors, so they'll create some really nice texture blends, especially on larger trees. My personal favorite is the acacia andesite tuff combo. You can see I've used it in that willow tree we talked about before, as well as this huge cherry tree from my 7 quick tips video on East Asian fantasy builds. Make sure to really puff out your tree canopy with lots of smaller branches and, of course, leaves. This tip comes a lot more from my personal experience than the others. I've made a good amount of custom trees over the years, and there's always been one thing I've consistently struggled with, and that's making the canopy look right. You can have a nice looking trunk and big thick branches, but if you just line up the outsides of the branches with leaf blocks, you're kind of just gonna end up with like a bunch of tubes, and it don't really look right. The thing about real life trees is that they have so many smaller and smaller branches spreading out from the larger ones. At a certain point, it becomes hard to tell what's a branch and what's a leaf stem. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but how do we translate this into Minecraft? Well, the first thing I do is make sure the entire circular area above the tree doesn't have any dead spaces. Here's the tree right now. You can see all this dead space. And here I filled it in with the smaller branches. Once you've got that, and after you add leaves around the branches, try adding in leaves in the remaining empty areas. It's okay if they're not really touching any of the branches, because it's going to produce a much nicer effect in the end. Ideally, the canopy will be rounded and puffy like this. I really do hope this little trick will help you out as much as it's helped me. Not all trees have the same kind of leaves. Once again, we're kind of going against what vanilla Minecraft has taught us, and that's good. The default game is very pretty, but we can do better. Anyways, I'm sure you know that vanilla trees just use one type of leaf block each. And before you put anything in the comments, no, azalea and flowering azalea don't count. But when you're making your own trees, it can be really nice to sprinkle in 2 different kinds of leaves, or maybe even 3 if you're feeling spicy. Personally, I love using regular azalea leaves with a more standard type of leaf block like oak. The lighter shade of green on the azalea looks really nice at the top of the canopy. And why stop there? You can use blocks for leaves that aren't even leaves at all. If you want to make a cherry tree, you're gonna need pink stuff like pink glazed terracotta, pink wool. Honestly, with enough imagination and some good color choices, you could use almost anything as a leaf block. Almost. As you construct your trees, prepare yourself for trial and error. Organic builds are hard. Let me just put that out there right away. It's really tough. This is a game of cubes, and trying to break that rigid geometry with these more free-form shapes is genuinely a very hard thing to do well. So first of all, don't sweat it if your trees come out all wonky. That's just part of the learning process. I can guarantee you, for every amazing tree you see out there on YouTube, the creator has struggled with many weird, lopsided trees. At the end of the day, any practice is good practice. In particular, tree trunks can be very tough. Don't stress it if you gotta rip out your build and try again multiple times over. It's all good and you're valid for doing that. At the end of the day, your build will come out better and you'll learn more. And that's what really matters. If you're hearing this message right now, thank you so much for sticking around to the end. You've just done a whole lot to help my channel grow, and I really appreciate that. I'll be the first to admit that trees are not my strong suit when it comes to Minecraft building. But regardless, I hope you found this advice useful and the tree build's cool. And if you did, a like on the video would be really appreciated. Until next time, gamers, this has been Leon, and I will see you all in the next 7 Quick Tips video. Stay cool, my dudes.